Li Ming-chen was hosting a one-month celebration for his mistress's baby. "Keep this quiet," he ordered his assistant. "Don't let my wife find out." 3 minutes later, the assistant was in a panic. The wife had been standing right outside the door with one single phone call. "I had withdrawn all $4.7 billion of investment from the Li Group." 5 minutes later, Li Mingchen's call came in, his voice trembling. "What the hell is the meaning of this?" The door to Suite 888 at the Grand Imperial Hotel was slightly ajar. I stood outside, clutching the gift box intended for a business partner. Half an hour ago, Li Mingchen's assistant had called, saying the CEO was hosting an important client and that I absolutely had to come. He said there was a surprise waiting for me. A surprise. Inside I heard the sharp, clear cry of a newborn. "Ming-chen, look, the baby just smiled." A woman's voice cooed, filled with the smugness of a new mother. I recognized that voice. By Ruer, Li Mingchen's personal secretary. She'd been with him for 2 years. I'd looked into her background, a drama school grad who'd done a few web series before pivoting to become a presidential assistant. "Keep it down." Li Mingchen's voice was low, but every word hit me with lethal clarity. "Seal off all information, don't let my wife find out. At least not until the Bday project is finalized." "So what if she finds out?" Bai Ruer giggled. "She's just a rich brat who lives off her father's legacy. What does she know besides throwing money around? You don't understand." Li Ming-chen snapped impatiently. "Chenshua Capital holds 72% of the Li Group's debt. If she pulls out now, Bday collapses instantly. Just endure it for 3 more months. Once the performance tracking agreement is signed, she won't be able to threaten me anymore." I leaned against the wall, the ribbon of the gift box digging into my palm. 3 months, so that was his timeline for making a move against me. "And what about the baby?" Bai Ruer asked. "We can't keep the 1-month party a secret forever. We'll say he's adopted," Li Ming-chen said flatly. "If she makes a scene, it'll just play into the narrative of her being a jealous, hysterical wife. It'll make my next move a lot easier." My next move. I savored those words, hearing footsteps at the end of the corridor. I slipped quickly into the fire escape. It was Li Mingchen's assistant, carrying a cake toward Suite 888. I pulled out my phone and dialed Chen Mo, the chief investment officer at Chenshua Capital. "President Sheng, 3 directives," I said, my voice eerily calm. "First, withdraw all active investments in the Li Group, including the Bday Phase 2 fund. Execute immediately. Second, notify our creditors that Li Group's credit rating has been downgraded. Suggest an immediate risk assessment. Third, prepare a detailed breakdown of the Li Group's financial transactions from the last 3 years. I want the most granular version possible." There was a 2-second silence on the other end. "President Sheng, this is a financial strangulation of the Li Group. Are you certain?" "Absolutely," I said, staring at the door of Suite 888. "Also, track every account linked to Li Ming-chen specifically. Look for large suspicious transfers over the past 6 months, his likely siphoning assets." "Understood." "Execution time, now." I hung up, smoothed my skirt and walked out of the fire escape toward the elevator. "Mrs. Li," the assistant shouted behind me. "The CEO is inside waiting for." "Tell him," I said, pressing the elevator button and looking back at his pale face. "I'm heading back to the office to handle an emergency and," I added, I recorded that entire conversation. "Tell him to start working on his explanation." As the elevator doors slid shut, I saw the cake slip from the assistant's hands and smash onto the floor. The cream splattered like a pale, dying flower. My phone vibrated in my pocket. "Li Ming-chen." I declined. It rang again. Declined. On the 3rd attempt I picked up. "Chenshua, where are you?" His voice was forced and sickly sweet. "The assistant said you were here. Why didn't you come in?" "It's too crowded in there," I said. "There's no room for a 3rd person." Dead silence on the line. "You've got it all wrong," Li Ming-chen said, quickly regaining his composure. "That's a partner's baby. I was just helping out." "Ming-chen." I cut him off. "You said you wanted to seal off the news so the wife wouldn't find out. You also mentioned that once the agreement is signed I wouldn't be able to threaten you anymore." His breathing suddenly became heavy and ragged. "Chenshua, let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you used my father's seed money to build your empire, how you expanded using my capital operations, or how you planned to kick me to the curb in 3 months." The elevator hit the ground floor. I stepped out of the hotel, the night wind hitting my face. "Oh, by the way," I said, I forgot to tell you, Chenshua Capital just pulled all funding from the Lee Group. That's $7 billion it needs to be in our account by 9:00 am tomorrow. You'd better figure out what you're going to tell your board of directors. Sheng Chenshua, his voice finally cracked, screaming, "Are you insane? Bday will die. Then let it die." I climbed into my car. "Li Mingchen, you forgot one thing. I built your empire and now, I'm going to tear it down." I hung up and looked at my driver. To the office. In the rearview mirror, the neon lights of the Grand Imperial Hotel flickered. I remembered that 5 years ago this was where we got engaged. That day, Li Mingchen had dropped to one knee and promised I'd be a princess for the rest of my life. A princess? I curled my lip. I'd much rather be a queen. My phone buzzed again. It was Chen Mo. "President Sheng, the withdrawal order is in effect. Also, we found that Li Mingchen has funneled $230 million through 3 offshore companies over the last 6 months. The destination accounts under Bai Ruer's name. Secure the evidence." "Done. One more thing." Chen Mo paused. "Li Mingchen just made 3 calls, one to his bank manager, one to the vice mayor's secretary, and one to your father." "My father?" I narrowed my eyes. "What did he say?" "The wiretap shows his testing the waters with your father. His asking whose side the Sheng family would take in the event of a divorce." I gripped my phone. My father, Sheng Jiongwo, was an old-school tycoon who valued reputation above all else. He had always seen Li Mingchen as a rare business prodigy, even when I had dropped hints about his behavior. My father told me to be more tolerant. "Book me the earliest flight for tomorrow," I said. "I'm going back to the family estate." "Understood. And regarding Li Mingchen, let him spiral," I said, watching the streetlights blur past. "The more chaotic, the better." The car stopped in front of the Chenshua Capital building. I looked up at the glowing lights of the top floor. That was my kingdom. Every light burned for me. A news notification popped up on my phone. Lee Group Real Estate suspected of liquidity crisis. Stock plummets 15% after hours. 15 minutes. The capital market has a nose for blood sharper than a shark's. I stepped into the elevator and hit the top floor. The mirrored walls reflected my silhouette, a black dress, pearl earrings, flawless makeup, and eyes like ice. I looked like a blade drawn from its sheath. The doors opened and Chen Mo met me. "President Sheng, Li Mingchen is in the lobby. He's demanding to see you." "Let him wait," he said. "If you don't see him, he'll leak the news of Bai Ruer and the baby to the media. He's threatening to paint you as a jealous wife who destroyed the Li Group out of spite." I laughed. Typical Li Mingchen, always resorting to the same old trick, throwing dirt on women. "Tell him," I said, walking toward my office, "that I'm looking forward to it, and while you're at it, get the evidence of Bai Ruer's asset transfers ready. If he wants to play the media game, I'll give him a masterclass." The office door clicked shut behind me. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city of A City stretched out below me. The Lee Group headquarters stood directly across the way, ablaze with light. That place used to be my second home. Now it was a battlefield. My phone lit up with a message from my father. "Chenshua, Mingchen said you two are having a spat. Married couples should talk things through. Don't lose your temper." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Dad, I'm coming home tomorrow. We have something serious to discuss about Li Mingchen, about the Sheng family, and about who the real boss is." Send power off outside. A plane streaked across the night sky. I remembered 7 years ago, the first time I brought Li Mingchen to meet my father. He wore a suit that didn't fit right. His palms were sweating with nerves, but he was trying so hard to act composed. Back then I thought it was sincerity. Now I knew it was just a mask for his greed. There was a knock on the door. Chen Mo poked his head in. "President Sheng, Li Mingchen left. He left a message for you." "Go on," he said. "You'll regret this. If Bday dies, you'll be the one losing the most." I turned to look at him. "Chen Mo, how long have you worked for me?" 5 years. "Then you should know that I never invested in the Li Group for the money." Chen Mo blinked, stunned. "I invested to make him believe he was actually talented," I said, picking up my coffee. "A person is most vulnerable not when they fail, but when they realize their success was an illusion." Li Mingchen's nightmare has only just begun. Across the street, the lights in the Lee building flickered and dimmed. Maybe it was just the late shift workers going home, or maybe it was an omen. I set down my coffee and opened my laptop. On the screen was the detailed file on the Bday project, a $30 billion investment, the city's largest redevelopment project in a decade. It was Li Mingchen's magnum opus, his crown. It was also his noose. I clicked on an encrypted file titled Authentic Financial Assessment of Lee Group Real Estate. I'd had this prepared 3 months ago out of professional habit. I didn't realize back then it would become my primary weapon. The data was staggering. To drive growth, Lee Ming-chen had borrowed aggressively. His actual debt ratio was over 90%. Once Bday hit a standstill, the chain reaction would take down the entire group within 72 hours, and he thought a performance agreement would keep me trapped on his sinking ship. How naive. My phone buzzed with a flurry of messages. At the top was one from Bday. "Shung, can we talk?" I raised an eyebrow. Now this was interesting, I replied. "About what?" The reply came instantly. "About how to ruin Lee Ming-chen. He lied to me just like he lied to you. We have a common enemy." I stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across my face. The real show was about to start. 8:00 a.m. The Chenshua Capital boardroom. I sat at the head of the long table. Before me were 3 documents: the Lee Group's debt list, the Bday Capital flowchart, and Lee Ming-chen's call logs from the last 6 months. Chen Mo led the team in. Every face showed the exhaustion of an all-nighter, but their eyes were bright with adrenaline. The moment of a hostile takeover is the most exhilarating time for a financier. President Shung, Lee Group's stock hit the limit down as soon as the market opened, Chen Mo said, sliding a tablet toward me. 3 partner banks have frozen their credit lines. Suppliers are already demanding cash on delivery. And Lee Ming-chen's reaction: he called an emergency board meeting at 3:00 a.m. to try and stabilize the situation. Chen Mo said after a pause, he proposed a plan, claiming he's willing to pledge his personal assets to regain the board's support. Personal assets? I let out a sharp, mocking laugh. What personal assets does he even have? The villa is marital property, the cars are company-owned, and the cash in his accounts. I tapped the file sent by Bday. Most of it is right here. The screen displayed a series of bank transfers. Lee Ming-chen had funneled $230 million through 3 offshore companies into accounts controlled by Bday, masked as consulting fees and project dividends. This is a textbook case of siphoning marital assets, the legal director said, adjusting his glasses. We can sue to recover the funds and argue for him to receive little to no assets in the divorce settlement. No rush, I said, closing the laptop. Let him perform first. Just as the words left my mouth, the boardroom door was slammed open. Lee Ming-chen burst in. His suit rumpled and his eyes shot through with blood. 2 security guards followed behind him, looking at me with sheepish expressions. President Shung, we couldn't stop him, it's fine. I waved them off. Since President Lee is here, he might as well take a seat. Lee Ming-chen didn't sit, he leaned over the table, looming over me. Chenshua, what the hell do you want? What do I want? I leaned back in my chair. I should be asking you that. Siphoning assets, keeping a mistress, and planning to kick me to the curb in 3 months. Lee Ming-chen, what exactly is your endgame? His expression shifted for a split second before he regained his mask of calm. Those are all misunderstandings. Bday is a business partner, and the baby is adopted. I was going to discuss it with you after. Discuss it? I cut him off. I pulled a flash drive from my desk and plugged it into the computer. And was this up for discussion too? The projector flickered to life, showing a video of Lee Ming-chen in a private meeting with the vice mayor. He was negotiating for policy favors on the Bday project. The condition: dragging my father into the mess, reporting him as an interested party. You wanted to use my father as your human shield. I shut off the video. Lee Ming-chen, you've severely miscalculated. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He never expected me to have that footage. Chenshua, listen to me. His voice softened into a plea. This was all for the company, for us. Once Bday is a success, we'll be in the top 50 of the Huruan rich list. Your father will benefit too. Leave my father out of this. I stood up and walked right up to him. Lee Ming-chen, do you have any idea how much money the Lee Group has taken from Chenshua Capital since its inception? He blanked. 8.7 billion. I stated firmly. 6.2 billion in direct investment and 2.5 billion in bridge loans. And do you know what the Lee Group's current market cap is? 12 billion. On paper, I sneered. After deducting liabilities and contingent debts, your actual valuation is barely 3 billion. In other words, without my funding, the Lee Group would have gone bankrupt 3 times over by now. Lee Ming-chen's face flushed a deep crimson. That's a lie. Our real estate holdings. Real estate. I tossed a report at him. Out of your 3 projects last year, 2 were deep in the red and 1 barely broke even. Your so-called performance is nothing but a paper game I created through capital operations. His hands trembled as he flipped through the report, his face draining of color. You really thought you were some business prodigy. I leaned in and whispered in his ear, no, you're just a phoenix man, a gold digger who rode his wife's coattails to the top. Without me, you are absolutely nothing. Sheng Qianxue, he roared, raising his hand to strike me. Chen Mo lunged forward and caught his wrist. Li Mingchen struggled for a moment before letting out a twisted, jagged laugh. Fine, fine, if we're taking the gloves off, don't blame me for playing dirty. You think pulling your investment will kill me? Have you forgotten the performance tracking agreement for Bday? I hadn't. That agreement stated that if the project stalled due to investor-related reasons, Qianxue Capital would owe the Li Group $5 billion in liquidated damages. Are you quite sure, I said, returning to my seat, that it's an investor-related reason? Li Mingchen's smirk vanished. I've done my homework. I clicked on another file, the environmental impact report for Bday. You had it forged. The actual soil contamination is 10 times over the legal limit. If this goes public, the project will be shut down instantly. Tell me, whose reason is that? He went deathly pale. Furthermore, I continued, I have records of every transaction with the vice mayor, the amounts, the dates, the locations. Li Mingchen, you want to play hardball with me? You're out of your league. The boardroom fell into a suffocating silence. Li Mingchen slumped into a chair, looking as if the life had been sucked out of him. He looked at me, his gaze shifting from rage to terror and finally to a grotesque kind of pleading. Qianxue, he reached out, trying to grab my hand. We've been married for 5 years. Do you really have the heart to? The heart to what? I pulled my hand away. The heart to watch you lose everything. Or the heart to let you drag me and my father down with you. I was wrong, he choked out, his voice cracking. I truly was. I'll deal with Bai Rua. I'll send the baby away and recover the money. Just give me one chance, just one. I watched his performance. This was the face I once loved. Now it just made me sick. A chance. I stood up. Li Mingchen, do you know what I hate most about you? It wasn't the cheating or the siphoning of assets. It was the fact that while you built your life on my back, you went around telling everyone I was just a rich brat living off her daddy. It was the fact that while you were plotting against me, you were still playing the part of the devoted husband. I walked to the door and looked back one last time. You mentioned 5 years of marriage. Do you have any idea how many fires I've put out for you in those 5 years? When the banks were calling in loans, I negotiated. When the government came for inspections, I smoothed things over. When competitors tried to crush you, I fought back. You actually thought that was all your own doing. Now, I opened the door wide. It's over. You have 2 choices. 1, cooperate with the divorce, return every cent you stole and I'll let you leave with some shred of dignity. 2, fight me and I will see you in prison, the Li Group in bankruptcy, and you with absolutely nothing. What's it going to be? Li Mingchen lowered his head, his shoulders shaking. After a long silence, he looked up, his eyes filled with pure venom. Sheng Qianxue, you'll regret this. You think you've won. Let me tell you, the partners behind Bday won't let you get away with this. The people backing them, they are people you can't afford to cross. Let them come. I stepped out of the room. Chen Mo, show him out. The door clicked shut behind me, followed by Li Mingchen's muffled roar. You'll regret this. You'll rot in hell for this. In the elevator, Chen Mo looked at me with concern. President Sheng, about the people backing them that he mentioned. Look into it, I said, hitting the button for the lobby. The Bday project partner is a Hong Kong firm called Grand Horizon Group. I want their full background, especially their private dealings with Li Mingchen. Also, I added, get the car ready. I'm going to see my father this afternoon. When the car pulled up to the Sheng estate, I saw my father's Mercedes already parked in the driveway. He was back sooner than I expected. Inside the living room, my father sat on the sofa with a pot of tea. He looked up, his expression unreadable. Qianxue, come sit. I sat down and got straight to the point. Dad, has Li Mingchen reached out to you? Yes, my father poured me a cup. He said you two were having a fight and that you were trying to destroy the Li Group. He asked me whose side the Sheng family would take if things ended in divorce. And what did you tell him? My father was silent for a long time. I told him that married couples have their squabbles. I told him to go home and wait for you to calm down before talking again. I gripped my teacup tight. Dad, what if I told you it wasn't a squabble? What if I told you Li Mingchen is actively trying to destroy me? My father's hand paused mid-air. I pushed the flash drive across the table. Everything is in here. The evidence of him siphoning assets, the forged environmental reports, the bribery logs, and a recording of him planning to kick me out in 3 months and leave me saddled with his debts. My father's face grew increasingly grim as he went through the files. He sat in silence for a long time after finishing. Dad, I said softly, 87% of the Li Group's capital comes from Chenshua Capital. It comes from me, yet Li Mingchen tells everyone I'm just a spoiled brat living off your name while he's a self-made man. Now he wants to divorce me, leave me with the Bday debts, and expect the Sheng family to clean up his mess. You tell me. I looked him straight in the eye. Whose side should the Sheng family take? My father set down his teacup and let out a long, heavy sigh. Chenshua, how long have you known all this? I started the investigation 3 months ago. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted to see. I gave a bitter smile. How far he would go, and I wanted to see if you would believe me. My father reached out and took my hand. His grip was warm and strong, just like when I was a child. Silly girl, he said. You're my daughter. If I don't believe you, who else would I believe? My eyes suddenly stung with heat. It was the answer I hadn't dared to hope for. As for Li Mingchen, my father's voice turned cold as ice. I'll handle him. I clearly lacked judgment when he first asked for my investment. Now it's time for the final settlement. Dad. But Chenshua, he looked at me sternly. Be sure of this. Once we start this war, there is no going back. A cornered dog like Li Mingchen will do anything to survive. I know. Are you afraid? I smiled. Afraid, Dad? I've been waiting for this day for 5 years. My father paused, then a smile touched his lips. He patted my shoulder. Good, that's my daughter. Go on then. Do what you have to do. The Sheng family will always have your back. I stepped out of the estate into the blinding sunlight and took a deep breath. My phone buzzed. It was Bai Ruer. Sheng, have you made up your mind? Let's meet, I said. Send me the address. It was time to see what the mistress really wanted. Bai Ruer chose a discreet, high-end Japanese tea house in the city center. When I slid the door open, she was already there. She wasn't draped in luxury as I expected. She wore no makeup and was dressed in a simple white t-shirt and jeans, looking more like a college student than a trophy mistress. President Sheng. She stood up and gave a slight bow. I sat down and scrutinized her. Let's skip the small talk. How exactly do we cooperate? She didn't beat around the bush. Li Mingchen lied to me. He promised he'd divorce you and marry me. But now that the baby is here, he's started siphoning assets and preparing to kick me and the child to the curb. So you want revenge? I want survival. She pushed a manila envelope toward me. Inside is Li Mingchen's private agreement with the Grand Horizon Group. They plan to rig the performance tracking contract to leave you with a massive debt, and then what? And then they'll stage an accident. You'll die unexpectedly, and the debt will be wiped clean. Li Mingchen would collect the insurance, play the part of the grieving widower to gain sympathy, and keep his empire running. My hand froze. Staged accident. Li Mingchen, you really are a monster. And do you have proof? The agreement was verbal, but I recorded everything, Bai Ruer said, producing her phone. And one more thing, the actual controller of Grand Horizon Group isn't some Hong Kong tycoon. She leaned in and whispered a name. My pupils contracted. Vice Mayor Zhao, the man in charge of urban construction in A City, and Li Mingchen's benefactor. They're using the Bday project to wash money, Bai Ruer continued. Li Mingchen handles the land acquisition and the cooked books, while Grand Horizon moves the funds offshore. If you sign that performance tracking agreement, you're the designated fall guy. I took the phone and listened to the recording. Li Mingchen's voice was unmistakable, casually discussing the details of an accident with someone from Grand Horizon, brake failure, a fall from a height, or perhaps a timely heart attack. Why help me? I asked, eyeing her. I told you survival, she said with a bitter laugh. If Li Mingchen is willing to kill you, what chance do I have? I'm giving you this in exchange for protection for me and my child. I don't even want the money anymore. I just want out of A City to start over. I looked at her, young, beautiful, once convinced that clinging to a high branch would let her soar. Now she realized the branch was held by a raptor waiting to tear her apart. Deal, I said, pocketing the phone. But you have to do one more thing for me. What? Keep playing the part with Li Mingchen. Whatever he asks, you do it, but record every single conversation, especially the parts concerning their accident. Bai Ruer turned pale. You want me to be a double agent? You can choose not to. I said, standing up. But then this evidence wouldn't be enough to earn my trust. She bit her lip and nodded. Fine, I'll do it. Leaving the tea house, I immediately called Chen Mo, dig into Grand Horizon, find the real connections to the power players, also get the best legal team to tear that Bday agreement apart. I want every single loophole flagged. President Sheng. Chen Mo's voice was hesitant. Li Ming-chen just sent an email, he's offering a compromise. He'll agree to the divorce and return the siphoned assets provided you continue the Bday investment and announce a peaceful separation to the public. Reply to him. Under consideration. Are you actually considering it? No, I said, stepping into my car. I'm waiting for him to trip up, waiting for Grand Horizon to lose their cool, and waiting for the vice mayor himself to step into the ring. You're fishing for the big shark. I'm catching the whole school. When the car reached the Chenshua Capitol building, I saw a small group waiting at the entrance. The man in the lead wore a nondescript administrative jacket, but his aura was commanding. Vice Mayor Zhao, he had come in person. President Sheng, he said with a practiced smile. It's been a while, do you have a moment to chat? I looked at his extended hand but didn't take it. Mayor Zhao is a busy man. What brings you to my humble office? The Bday project, he whispered, his eyes scanning the lobby. And that headstrong boy Li Ming-chen, he's upset you, and I'm here to offer an apology on his behalf. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. I didn't realize you and Li Ming-chen were so close. We've crossed paths a few times, he said naturally. The youth can be reckless. I hope you can be tolerant. Bday is a key municipal project. It affects thousands of relocated families. We can't let it fail. And so, he leaned in, his voice dropping an octave. Whatever terms you have, name them. I'll keep Li Ming-chen in line as long as the project moves forward smoothly. Everyone benefits. I looked at him and smiled. Mayor Zhao, when you say everyone, do you mean the public or just yourself? His smile faltered. I've done some digging, I said, pulling a document from my bag. Grand Horizon's offshore accounts have had several transactions with your wife's charitable foundation. 3 transfers last year totaling 80 million. Would you like me to read the dates? Vice Mayor Zhao went ghost white. President Sheng, he stammered. What exactly are you implying? I'm implying, I said, tucking the file away, that I will let Bday die. I will see Li Ming-chen in prison. As for you, I turned toward the doors. That depends on your behavior now. Please leave. Sheng Chenshua, he barked behind me. Do you have any idea who you're messing with? I stopped and looked back. Mayor Zhao, do you have any idea who you're messing with? Chenshua Capital manages 30 billion in assets. I have partnerships with the top 20 real estate firms in the country. If you touch me, a city's GDP will take a hit. Can you really afford to lose your career over this? His expression shifted through a dozen colors before he squeezed out a fake smile. President Sheng, a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Let's talk this through. There's nothing to talk about. I walked inside. Chen Mo, show him out and record that conversation. Triple backup, different secure locations. Back in the office, Chen Mo was buzzing. President Sheng, the look on Zhao's face was priceless. How did you find the link between Grand Horizon and his wife? Bai Rua gave me the lead. Our own channels did the rest, I said. Remember, in capital markets, information is the weapon. He who knows more decides who lives or dies. My phone rang. It was Li Ming-chen. Chenshua, did Mayor Zhao find you? Yes, and what did he say? He said, I paused for effect, that I should give you a chance, on the condition that Bday proceeds and the agreement is signed. Silence on the other end. And did you agree? I'm thinking about it. Chenshua, his voice suddenly turned soulful. I know I messed up. Give me 3 months, no, 1 month. I'll fix everything and we can start over. I swear I only love you. I cut him off. Ming-chen, do you know your biggest flaw? You're too good an actor. What? True repentance doesn't come with conditions. You say you love me, yet you push for the agreement. You say we'll start over, yet you're still plotting with Grand Horizon. Do you take me for an idiot? His breathing turned ragged. Sheng Chenshua, don't push your luck. You think you've won just because you have dirt on Zhao. Let me tell you, the power behind Grand Horizon is beyond your imagination. Then show me. I hung up and turned to Chen Mo. Initiate Plan B. Plan B. Contact our competitor, Prosperity Real Estate. Tell them I have the core data for Bday, including the real environmental reports and the money trail. Ask them if they're interested in taking over the project. Chen Mo's eyes lit up. You're using a borrowed knife to kill him. No, I smiled, I'm letting Li Ming-chen know what it feels like to be abandoned by everyone. In the VIP ward of a private hospital, I dressed in a nurse's uniform and pushed a medicine cart inside. Bai Ruo was in bed, clutching the baby, her eyes flickered with recognition before she resumed her act. Nurse, the baby has a fever, can you check? Of course. I whispered, pretending to check the infant. The temperature was normal, she was just playing along. There was another orderly in the room, a guard Li Ming-chen had sent to watch her, I felt his gaze burning into my back. I said loudly, the baby needs a detailed examination. I must ask the orderly to step out for a moment. The guard hesitated, but Bai Ruo frowned. What, I don't even have privacy now, out. Once the door closed, I whispered, did Grand Horizon contact you? She paled. How did you know? What did they want? They wanted me to sabotage the performance agreement. Her voice shook. Li Ming-chen said if you sign, he'll give me 50 million and send me and the child abroad. And did you agree? I pretended to. She grabbed my hand. Sheng, I don't want to die. I know too many secrets. They won't let me go easily. You have to help me. I pulled a manila envelope from the bottom of the cart. New identity, passport, plane tickets, and a card with 2 million. Tonight at 10 p.m. a car will be at the back entrance of the hospital. It goes straight to the airport. She was stunned. You had this already. I never go into battle unprepared. I lowered my mask. But I need one last favor. Anything. Give me every record of the transactions between Li Ming-chen and Grand Horizon, recordings, videos, bank stubs. In exchange, I guarantee your safety. She bit her lip and pulled a flash drive from under her pillow. It's all here, including their detailed plan for their accident. I took the drive and asked, did you ever love him? She laughed bitterly. Love him, Sheng, I'm a drama grad, acting is my profession. He thought I was a canary, but I was after the money from day one. I just didn't expect him to be more ruthless than me. And the baby is innocent, she said softly, looking down. I'll raise him to be nothing like his father. I nodded. 10 p.m. Don't be late. Leaving the ward, I felt the guard's suspicious gaze, but I walked past him with clinical calm. My phone buzzed. Li Ming-chen, where are you? Office. Bai Ruo's ward had a strange visitor. My man said a nurse looked suspicious. You didn't send anyone, did you? Why would I countered. Didn't you say she was just a partner? He stammered for a second before changing the subject. Chenxue, the Bday agreement. Zhao is pressing hard. We can't delay anymore. I'm reviewing the terms, I said. Some parts need adjusting. The definitions for liability are too vague and I paused on purpose. What happens if the project stalls due to force majeure? Force majeure? He asked sharply. Like what? Like, I lowered my voice. The forged environmental reports being leaked or the project head being investigated for criminal activity. The line went dead silent. Chenxue, his voice turned cold as steel. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying I know the reports are faked. I know about your deal with Zhao. I'm giving you 24 hours, I said. Confess everything and cooperate with the investigation, and I might consider a plea deal for you otherwise. Otherwise what? Otherwise, I said as the elevator doors opened. Tomorrow morning every media outlet in A-City gets the real reports and the recordings of you and Zhao. Guess who goes down first? Sheng Chenxue, he roared. You wouldn't dare. You'll find out tomorrow. Back at the office, Chen Mo met me. Prosperity Real Estate responded. They want Bday and are willing to pay a premium, provided we hand over Li Group's full financial records. Tell them yes, but on one condition, which is, once the acquisition is complete, Li Ming-chen is out, no compensation, no severance. I want him to leave with absolutely nothing. Chen Mo sucked in a breath. He'll never accept that. He won't have a choice. I walked into my office. Also, contact old Jew at the Economic Crimes Division. Tell him I have a lead on a case involving over $1 billion. It's time to call the police. No, I said, leaning back into my chair. I want Li Ming-chen to understand that he's not just facing a business rival, he's up against the machinery of the state. I want him to never sleep soundly again. Outside, night fell over the city across the street. The lights in Li Ming-chen's office were still burning. He was surely on the phone, begging for favors, scrambling for a way out, but he had no idea that every call he made, every person he met, was under my surveillance. My phone rang. It was my father. Chenxue, Vice Mayor Zhao has been taken in for questioning by the Commission for Discipline Inspection. I raised an eyebrow. That was fast. Someone filed a real name report with ironclad evidence. Also, my father paused. Li Ming-chen is desperately trying to borrow money. Word is he's willing to pledge all his shares in the Li Group to anyone who will save him. Is anyone biting? Not a soul, my father laughed. Once the news of your withdrawal broke, no one would touch the Li Group with a 10-foot pole. Chen-shua, this move of yours, it's ruthless. Dad, I said, this is just the beginning. The thing Li Ming-chen values most isn't money, it's his ego. I'm going to make him beg me on his knees. I hung up and opened the flash drive Ruer had given me. The contents were more explosive than I'd imagined. Recordings of Li Ming-chen's secret meetings with Grand Horizon discussing how to dispose of me, his transactions with Zhao totaling 500 million, and even a catalogue of his affairs with other women. Ruer wasn't the only one. I sent a copy to Chen Mo. Organize this into a timeline, the more granular the better. President Sheng. Chen Mo's voice trembled after reviewing the files. If this goes public, Li Ming-chen is finished. We won't go public yet. I said, I'm going to use this to negotiate one final deal. What deal? I'm going to make him hand over the Li Group to me with his own 2 hands. Late at night, I sat alone in my office. The city lights glittered outside, each one a story. I remembered 5 years ago when Li Ming-chen first introduced me to his friends. He'd held my shoulder and said proudly, "This is my wife, Sheng Chen-shua, she's my lucky star." Back then I thought that was love. Now I knew I was just an asset to flaunt, a ladder for his climb. My phone buzzed, a text from Li Ming-chen. "Chen-shua, we need to talk. I'm downstairs at your place." I looked out the window and saw his car parked by the curb. He was leaning against the door, smoking, his silhouette looking profoundly solitary under the street lamp. Once I would have felt for him, now it just felt pathetic. I replied, "Come up for the last time." When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find a broken man. Li Ming-chen's eyes were bloodshot, his face unshaven. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Chen-shua," he rasped, "I surrender. Name your terms, just leave me a way out." Way out. I poured him a glass of water. "Do you know what your biggest problem is, Ming-chen?" He looked up at me blankly. "You always assume everyone else is an idiot." I sat across from him. "You think I didn't know you were on the phone with Grand Horizon in your car before coming up? You think I didn't notice the recording pen in your pocket?" His face drained of color. "Hand over the recorder." I held out my hand. "And then we talk business." He froze. After a long silence, he placed the pen on the table. "And your phone," I added. "Power it off and remove the battery." He complied, looking hollowed out. "Now," I produced a document. "This is the equity transfer agreement for the Li Group. You will transfer your 51% stake to me for the price of $1. Sign this, and I'll ensure you don't go to prison. I'll even give you $5 million for living expenses." $1. He lunged forward. "Sheng Chen-shua, are you insane? The Li Group is valued at 12 billion. On paper," I sneered. "In reality, after liabilities and fines, you're sitting on -3 billion. I'm not robbing you, Li Ming-chen, I'm bailing you out." He slumped back into his chair. You're swallowing the whole company." "No," I said, "I'm making it vanish. You will announce bankruptcy and liquidation in your name, and you will leave A City as a failed entrepreneur with your 5 million never to return. That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up. "Was it fair when you siphoned our marital assets? Was it fair when you planned an accident to kill me? You want to talk to me about fairness?" He was speechless. "You have 2 choices," I said. "1, sign, take the money and leave with your freedom. 2, don't sign and wait for the economic police to knock on your door tomorrow morning. You'll go to prison, the company will go bust, and you'll have nothing. I'll give you 10 minutes. I walked into the bedroom and closed the door. Through the crack, I saw him burying his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Was he crying, or was it just another performance? 10 minutes later I walked back out. He looked up, his eyes shot through with red. "I'll sign, but on one condition." "Speak." "Let me see Ruer and the baby one last time. I know you're sending her away. Let me say goodbye." I looked at him and suddenly realized something. "Do you actually love her?" He paused, then gave a bitter smile. "I don't know, maybe she just isn't like you. She needed me, she depended on me, she made me feel like a man." "Like a man?" I laughed. "A real man doesn't need to manipulate women to prove his worth." I picked up the intercom. "Bring Ruer up." 10 minutes later, Ruer entered, clutching the baby and looking at Li Ming-chen with sheer hostility. "Ruer." Li Ming-chen stepped toward her, reaching for the child. She pulled back sharply. "Mr. Li," she said, Her voice ice cold. The play is over, stop acting. Li Mingchen froze. What are you talking about? I'm saying, she looked at me. President Sheng, I've given you all the evidence how he planned to kill me, to silence me, how he planned to dump the baby at an orphanage. Is that enough to put him away for a few years? Li Mingchen turned deathly pale. You betrayed me. You betrayed everyone first. Bai Ruo said, turning toward the door. Enjoy your time in prison, Mingchen. This is between you and President Sheng now, I'm done. As the door clicked shut, Li Mingchen collapsed onto the floor. I knelt beside him. Still feel like a man. He didn't answer, his eyes were vacant. Sign it, I said, handing him the pen. Then go turn yourself in. I've already spoken to the police. A voluntary confession will earn you a lighter sentence. He took the pen with a trembling hand and signed away his empire. Qianxue, he said after the final page, if I hadn't cheated, if I hadn't plotted against you, what would have happened to us? I gathered the papers and stood up. There are no ifs, Li Mingchen, this is who you are, greedy, selfish, never satisfied. If it wasn't Bai Ruo, it would have been someone else. If it wasn't Bday, you would have sold me out for another project. It's your nature, it can't be changed. I walked to the door. Tomorrow morning 9:00 a.m. at the Economic Crimes Division, don't be late. As I left, I heard the sound of his sobbing, raw and heart-wrenching. But my heart felt absolutely nothing. 8:00 a.m. The Li Group boardroom. I sat at the head of the table with the signed transfer agreement. 51% of the shares now belonged to me. The board, however, only knew they were here for an emergency crisis meeting. The directors filed in, some of Li Mingchen's old guard, some institutional investors, and my own plants. Li Mingchen was the last to enter. He looked haggard, his eyes swollen from lack of sleep. Everyone, he began, struggling to project his voice. I've called this meeting because the company is facing some liquidity issues, but I assure you this is temporary. Once we weather this storm, Mr. Li, I interrupted. Before you continue, I have an announcement. Silence fell over the room. I stood up and handed out copies of the agreement. As of last night, Mr. Li Mingchen has transferred his 51% stake in the Li Group to me for the sum of $1. I am now the controlling shareholder. The room erupted into chaos. What? Impossible. Mr. Li, is this true? Li Mingchen kept his head down, silent. Furthermore, I continued, I propose the immediate removal of Li Mingchen from his positions as chairman and CEO to be replaced by myself. Simultaneously, we will initiate corporate restructuring and bankruptcy proceedings. Sheng Qianxue, an old director, slammed the table. By what right? Mr. Li built this company from the ground up. From the ground up, I sneered, turning on the projector. Look at this. Since its founding, the Li Group has received 8.7 billion from Qianxue Capital, accounting for 72% of its operating capital. Mr. Li's own funds amounted to a mere 20 million provided by the Sheng family. In other words, I looked around the room. The Li Group never belonged to Li Mingchen. It was built with my money. Now, I'm simply taking back what's mine. The room went deathly still. What about the brand? An investor asked. It's gone, I said without mercy. As of today, Li Real Estate officially exits the stage of history. Li Mingchen suddenly stood up. I object. You have no right to object. I looked him in the eye. You are now a minority shareholder with less than 5%, and I pulled out another document. The Economic Crimes Division has opened a case against you for embezzlement, bribery, and forgery, pending the investigation. You are under a travel ban. You cannot leave the city. The doors opened and 2 officers in uniform stepped in. Mr. Li Mingchen, please come with us. He looked at them, then at me, and began to laugh, a desperate, crazed sound. Sheng Qianxue, you think you've won? Grand Horizon won't let you get away with this. The people behind them, you can't touch them. I'll be waiting, I said as I walked out of the Li building. Reporters swarmed. President Sheng, is it true the Li Group is bankrupt? What do you have to say about Li Mingchen's arrest? I stopped and faced the cameras. First, the Li Group is undergoing a proactive restructuring. Second, Mr. Li is under investigation, and I trust the law will provide a just verdict. Third, I paused. To all women out there, never pin your life on someone else. Even if they promise you the world, true security is something only you can give yourself. Back in the car, I called the police. Officer Ju, this is Sheng Qianxue. I have new leads on the Li case involving Grand Horizon and a certain city official. Yes, it's vital. I'm coming over now. I looked out the window. Li Mingchen had fallen. But the game wasn't over. Grand Horizon and the shadows behind them, they were the real opponents. Officer Ju, I said as I entered the station later that day. Li Ming-chen confessed to some things, but his staying silent on Grand Horizon. What do you have for me? I handed him the drive. Here are the records of the money laundering between Grand Horizon and the Li Group. And Vice Mayor Zhao is just the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg, Ju asked, his eyes narrowing. The real power behind Grand Horizon, I lowered my voice to a whisper, is a relative of a high-ranking provincial official. They're using the Bday project for more than just money laundering. We're talking kickbacks, political favors, and illicit campaign funding. Officer Ju's expression turned grim. President Sheng, do you have proof for these allegations? I have leads, but it requires the full weight of the law to dig deeper. I looked him in the eye. Ju, I know this case is massive, you're going to hit some serious walls, but if you have the courage to investigate, I will provide every resource I have. If you don't, I'll investigate. He cut me off. As long as the evidence is solid, I don't care who's involved, I'm in. I smiled and extended my hand. A pleasure doing business with you. Leaving the Economic Crimes Division, night had fully claimed the city. The urban lights flickered like 1,000 watchful eyes. My phone rang. It was my father. Chen Xue, check the news. I turned on the tablet. The financial channel was broadcasting. Li Group Real Estate officially declares bankruptcy and restructuring. Former chairman Li Ming-chen under investigation for multiple felonies. The anchor's voice was stern, set against footage of me walking out of the Li building earlier that day. Sheng Chenxue, founder of Chenxue Capital and ex-wife of Li Ming-chen, has stepped in at the 11th hour to seize control and steady the ship. Steady the ship, I gave a bitter smile. I was just cleaning up a mess I had helped create. If I hadn't fallen for Li Ming-chen, hadn't used my resources to build him up, we wouldn't be here. But there are no ifs in life. I could only finish the path I started. The phone rang again, an unknown number. I picked up, met by a low, gravelly male voice. Congratulations, President Sheng. Li Ming-chen is down, and you've become the most powerful woman in a city. Who is this? Who I am doesn't matter, he said. What matters is that you've crossed people you shouldn't have. The Grand Horizon matter ends here, or else what? Or else, he chuckled softly, your father's Sheng Group might run into some difficulties, and as for yourself, watch out for cars, watch out for fires, watch out for accidents. Click, the line went dead. I stood by the curb, a chill running down my spine, a threat, blatant and cold, but I wasn't some damsel to be frightened. Off, I dialed Chen Mo. Double my security, 24-hour protection. Also, trace that number and get me a complete dossier on Grand Horizon. I want to know every single one of their weaknesses. President Sheng, I'm going to strike back, I said. They think a threat will stop me. How naive. I'm going to make Grand Horizon and the people behind them pay for every word. 3 days later, Chenxue Capital Strategy Room, a massive relationship map covered the wall. Grand Horizon was at the center, with lines branching out to politicians, banks, offshore accounts, and underground banks, a sprawling spiderweb. President Sheng, Chen Mo pointed to one branch. Grand Horizon's main artery is a company called Far East Trading. On the surface it's import-export, in reality it's a laundering platform. Evidence, our people got inside, we have part of the ledgers, but the critical data is on overseas servers. We'll need federal cooperation to pull it. I turned to the legal director. Any progress with Officer Ju? He's frozen 3 of their domestic accounts, but the bulk of the money is offshore and, he hesitated. Someone upstairs reached out. They told him to handle with caution. Who gave the order? A deputy director at the provincial department. He's the brother-in-law of the man controlling Grand Horizon. I narrowed my eyes. The rot went deeper than I thought. Then bypass the provincial level. I said, go straight to the ministry. I have an old classmate at the National Bureau. I'll make the call. Also, I looked at Chen Mo. Initiate Plan B. Tell Prosperity Real Estate to accelerate the acquisition of Li assets, especially Bday. I want Grand Horizon to lose every cent they put in. President Sheng, Chen Mo said worriedly. If we push too hard, they might snap. Your safety. I have my own arrangements. I stood up and walked to the window. Chen Mo, do you know the highest form of warfare in the capital markets? What is it? To win without fighting. I turned around. I'm going to make the people at Grand Horizon come to me and beg, and to do that, I dialed a number. Manager Li, this is Sheng Chenxue regarding that loan to Grand Horizon. Yes, the 3 billion due next week. I think it's time for a serious risk reassessment. I hung up. Grand Horizon has 3 billion in debt maturing next week. Whether the bank renews it or calls it in depends entirely on manager Lee, and he owes me a very big favor. That afternoon I met the CEO of Grand Horizon at a golf course, a man in his 50s from Hong Kong named Hu Jiandong. He looked refined but his eyes were like a viper's. President Sheng, he said, gripping my hand a little too tight. Young and talented, I'm impressed. Mr. Hu, you're too kind. I pulled my hand back. Take a seat. We walked along the green pretending to talk shop. President Sheng, Hu got straight to the point. How about we call it a day on the Li Mingchen matter? He's learned his lesson and you've had your revenge. Let's both take a step back and look out for each other in A City. A step back, I swung the club, sending the ball flying. Mr. Hu, your people threatened me with accidents. Is that your version of taking a step back? Hu's face shifted. Those were just some low-level idiots, I've dealt with them. Good. I walked toward the next hole. Then let's talk business. How much did you sink into Bday? 5 billion. Do you want it back? He stopped in his tracks. What are you getting at? I'm saying, I looked at him. Once Prosperity Real Estate takes over, Bday will be tendered. If Grand Horizon cooperates with the investigation and hands over all evidence of illegal activity, I can guarantee your investment will be returned in full. Cooperate? Hu sneered. You're asking me to turn myself in. I'm giving you a lifeline. I stepped closer. The ministry is watching now. How long do you think your little local network can protect you? Instead of waiting for the end, why not switch sides? Give me the evidence on the man behind the curtain and I'll make sure you walk away clean otherwise. I leaned in, my voice a low threat. That 3 billion loan due next week, it will be called in immediately. I will pull every string I have until Grand Horizon cannot move an inch in this country. Hu's face turned several shades of grey. You're threatening me. No, I smiled. I'm saving you. You're a smart man, Hu. You know which way the wind is blowing. That night I returned to the office. Chen Mo was waiting. President Sheng, Hu Jiandong called. He wants to talk also. Also what? Li Mingchen is asking to see you from the detention center. He says he has critical information regarding a big player in Grand Horizon. I raised an eyebrow. Tell him I'll be there tomorrow morning. The next day in the visitor's room, Li Mingchen looked unrecognizable, shaved head, orange vest, haggard beyond belief. Chen Xue. He looked at me with hollow eyes. You came, make it quick, I said. My time is valuable. The man behind Grand Horizon, he whispered, is the executive vice governor, a man named Wang. Bday is actually a laundering tool for his mistress's money. That mistress is Bai Rua. I froze. Bai Rua, yes. Li Mingchen gave a hollow laugh. She was never a drama student. She was Wang's canary for 3 years. He sent her to watch me and monitor the project. The baby, it's Wang's. My mind raced. Bai Rua, the seemingly fragile mistress, was actually a mole. When did you find out? I only just pieced it together. He looked down. She approached me, got the evidence, handed it to you. It was all Wang's plan. He used you to eliminate me so he could seize the Bday profits for himself. Why tell me this? Li Mingchen looked up, his eyes full of regret. Because I'm angry. I was used as a pawn and now I'm being silenced. I know I wronged you, but I don't want to see you fall into their trap either. Wang's next move, he continued, is your father. The Sheng Group has land he wants. He'll use the same tactic, partner up, frame him, then swallow the company whole. I clenched my fists. Where's the proof? Bai Rua has it, he said. She has everything on Wang, bank transfers, videos, and his dealings with overseas interests. Overseas interests. Wang, Li Mingchen's voice dropped even lower, is a spy. He uses Grand Horizon to funnel intelligence and funds abroad. Bday was just a cover. I stood up abruptly. This was no longer a financial crime. This was national security. Why tell me now? Because before I was too afraid, he sighed. Now I have nothing left to lose. Chen Xue, protect yourself, protect the Sheng family. Wang's people are already on the move. They're here to silence everyone, me and you. Suddenly the door to the room was slammed open. A guard rushed in. President Sheng, get out now. A car just crashed through the perimeter. It's an attack. Before he could finish, a deafening explosion rocked the building. Li Mingchen lunged forward, shielding me as a piece of the ceiling crashed down where I had been standing. Go, he shouted, pushing me toward the rear exit. Get out through the back, run. I scrambled up. gave him one last look and sprinted for the door. Behind me I heard gunfire and screams. I burst out of the facility and dove into the waiting car. Drive, go. As we sped away, I looked back. Chaos reigned at the entrance. A black SUV had smashed through the wall and gunmen were trading fire with the police. President Sheng, the driver, a bodyguard from Chenmo, asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I panted. "Call Officer Ju, tell him Vice Governor Wang is a foreign agent, report it to National Security immediately, and find Bai Rua, keep her alive, she's the key witness." My hands were shaking. This had escalated from a boardroom battle into a life-and-death struggle for the country. My phone rang. It was Bai Rua. "Sheng, something's wrong. Wang's people found me, I'm at." The call was cut off by a heavy thud, followed by dead silence. "Bai Rua," I screamed into the phone, but there was no reply. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The war had changed. "To the airport," I said. "I'm going after her, she's the only one left who can bring him down." "Go." I snapped my eyes open, my gaze like ice. "That's an order." The car pulled a U-turn, tires screeching as we headed for the airport. Outside, the night was as thick as ink, but I knew that the darkness right before dawn is always the heaviest. If you can push through it, you'll find the light. When my private jet touched down in Southeast Asia, it was 3:00 am local time. Ignoring the jet lag, I headed straight for the last known signal from Bai Rua, a coastal resort. Chen Mo had already arranged a local security team. The leader was an ex-Special Forces operative named Old K, a man whose face was a map of scars but whose eyes remained calm. "President Sheng," he said in heavily accented Mandarin. The target was last seen in Villa C, but it was empty by the time my men arrived. There were signs of a struggle and blood. My heart sank. "And Bai Rua, missing. CCTV shows her being forced into a black van heading toward the pier." "Then we move." The car sped along the coastal highway, the air thick with the salt and brine of the sea. I stared out into the blackness, remembering Bai Rua's last call. She had called me Sister Sheng. Her voice was trembling, but she still fought to tell me her location. She trusted me, even in her hour of greatest peril. I couldn't let her die. "President Sheng," Old K said suddenly. "Situation ahead." I looked out. A speedboat was docked at the pier, with several men loading crates onto it. Under the moonlight I recognized a face. Hua Jiandong. He had come personally. "Surround them," I ordered. "Don't fire unless necessary, but do not let that boat leave." Within minutes a dozen vehicles swarmed the pier from all sides. Hua Jiandong's face twisted in panic. He drew a handgun and pressed it against the temple of a bound woman. "Bai Rua, Sheng Qianxue," he roared. "Stay back or I'll kill her right now." I stepped out of the car, hands raised. "Mr. Hua, stay calm. Whatever you want, we can negotiate." "Negotiate?" he sneered. "You backed me into a corner and now you want to talk?" Vice Governor Wang said if I silence her and take care of you. "Hua Jiandong," I said, stepping forward slowly. "Do you know who Wang really is? He's a foreign agent. You're helping him commit treason. Even if you succeed today, what then? National security will never stop hunting you. You'll be a fugitive for the rest of your life." "Shut up." His gun hand was shaking. "I don't care who he is, I just want my money and my life. One more step and I'll pull the trigger." "If you shoot," I stopped. "You don't walk away, look around. You have a dozen rifles trained on you. You kill her and you'll be a civ in a second." Hua looked around, his face turning ghostly. He knew the game was up. "Drop the gun." I held out my hand. "Hand over Bai Rua and I'll guarantee your life. You can turn state's witness against Wang and earn your way out of a death sentence." He hesitated for a long time. Finally the gun lowered. Old KS men rushed forward, disarming him and untying Bai Rua. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "Sister Sheng, they have the baby. They took my baby." "The baby?" I blanked. "Wang's baby," she cried. "He took him to keep me quiet. He said if I didn't listen, he would." "Where?" "The pier warehouse," Hua Jiandong said suddenly. "I'll take you, but you keep your word, I don't die." Inside the warehouse, a nanny was clutching an infant. Seeing us, she screamed in terror. Bai Rua lunged forward, snatched the child and held him tight against her chest. "It's okay," I patted her back. "It's over, you're safe." Back at the hotel, Bai Rua finally calmed down. She rocked the baby to sleep, then sat before me and produced a flash drive. "Inside this," she said, "is everything on Wang, his overseas dealings, his bribery logs, and the evidence of him ordering hits to silence people." "How did you get this?" "I was with him for 3 years," she smiled bitterly. I was always prepared. Every time he made me do his dirty work, I kept a record. I thought it would just be to save my own skin, but I didn't expect it would be the weapon to bring him down. Sister Sheng, she looked at me. I'm giving this to you, but I ask one thing. Name it. Protect my child. Let him be an ordinary person. Wang is his father, but I hope he never ever knows that. I looked at her. This woman I once considered an enemy was now a comrade in arms. I promise I'll arrange for the child to go abroad under a new name. He'll grow up safe, and you can start over too. The next day we took a private charter back to China. On the plane, Bai Ruo fell asleep on my shoulder, her child peaceful in her arms. My phone finally caught a signal, and Chen Mo's call came through immediately. President Sheng Li Mingchen is dead. My hand trembled. What? During the attack on the detention center last night, a stray bullet hit him. They couldn't save him. He was pronounced dead at 4:00 am. I closed my eyes in silence. Li Mingchen, my husband, my enemy, gone just like that. Also, Chen Mo's voice turned heavy. Vice Governor Wang has fled. Upon hearing of Hua's arrest, he crossed the border. He could be anywhere by now. Issue a red notice, I said coldly. Global manhunt, hand Bai Ruo's evidence to National Security and the Discipline Commission. I want Wang to find no peace even at the ends of the earth. And President Sheng, what about Li Mingchen's remains? I looked out at the sea of clouds. They looked just like the sky on the day he proposed to me. Cremate him, I said. Bring the ashes to me, you. We were married after all, I sighed. Seeing him off for the last time is the only thing I have left to do. When the plane landed in A City at dusk, reporters swarmed the tarmac. President Sheng, is it true you were caught in a gunfight? Mr. Li is confirmed dead. What are your thoughts? Is it true the vice governor is a spy? I stopped and faced the cameras. Official reports will follow. I will only say this: justice may be delayed, but it is never denied, no matter who is involved or where they hide. The law will find them. As for Mr. Li Mingchen, I paused. We were husband and wife. Despite our grievances, the debt is settled with his death. May he rest in peace. I sat in the car and finally let my guard down, leaning back and closing my eyes. Li Mingchen was dead, but the war wasn't over. Wang was a fugitive. The remnants of Grand Horizon were still active, and there were enemies in the shadows waiting for me to slip up, but I wouldn't slip, not until the last man was caught, not until there was true peace. A week later, at the headquarters of Chenshua Capital, President Sheng, Chen Mo entered. The acquisition by Prosperity Real Estate is complete. The Li Group assets have been absorbed. The Bday project has been taken over by a state-owned enterprise. The residents are finally getting their compensation. Good, and the employees, prioritized for retention, same benefits. The old Li staff are very grateful to you. Grateful? I smiled bitterly. They should hate me if not for me. Li Mingchen wouldn't have fallen and the company wouldn't have collapsed, but that was business, cruel, heartless, but necessary. Also, Chen Mo handed me a file. This was in Li Mingchen's effects, a letter addressed to you. I took the envelope. It was his handwriting, messy and rushed. Chenshua, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry is too light a phrase, but I have to say it. I'm sorry for the betrayal, the plotting, and the pain. I know you won't forgive me, and I don't ask for it. I only hope you live well. Don't be like me, consumed by greed until it costs you your life. And watch out for Wang. He is more vicious than you can imagine. If you can, get away from this. Take the Sheng family and leave A City. Never come back. Li Mingchen. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. I stood up. Get ready. I'm going to see Officer Ju. Is there news on the Wang case? In Ju's office, a red XW drawn over Wang's photo on the wall. President Sheng, Ju said, pouring tea. Bai Ruo's testimony is vital. We've locked onto several of Wang's overseas accounts and are freezing them. But what? I asked. But his cunning. Officer Ju frowned, staring at the map. He swaps identities every time he moves. Our tracking is always one step behind. Plus, he has foreign backing, likely an intelligence agency. The classic playbook of a spy, I said, my voice cold. He has value, so someone protects him. To catch him, we have to sever his source of value. How? I slid a file across the desk. These are the transaction details between Grand Horizon and foreign entities. This is how Wang funnels funds and intel out of the country. If we can counter-infiltrate, feed them fake intel, and make him lose their trust. You want to turn his own handlers against him. Ju's eyes lit up. No, I shook my head. I want to make him A liability. Once they realize he's useless, they'll discard him. That's our opening. Ju leaned back, silent for a moment. It's feasible, but it requires time and your direct cooperation. What do I need to do? Wang still has deep cover moles inside the country. Ju lowered his voice. We suspect one of them is in your inner circle. A chill ran down my spine. Who? We aren't sure, but every time we move the other side gets a heads up. Including your trip to Southeast Asia, how else did Hu Jiandong know exactly when you'd arrive? My mind raced. Only a handful of people knew that itinerary. Chen Mo Old K and investigate everyone, I said, my voice like iron. Start with the people I trust most. Back at the office I locked myself in. Who leaked the intel? Chen Mo had been with me for 5 years. Old K was external but had an ironclad reputation, a secretary, a driver, or Bai Ruo. No, not her. If she wanted me dead, she wouldn't have come back with me. My phone rang. Bai Ruo, Sister Sheng, can you come up? I have something to show you. In the safe house, she handed me her phone, a message from an international number. It was Wang. Withdraw the evidence and I'll give the child a fortune and a safe passage out, otherwise I will find a way to reach you, even in China. How do we reply? She asked, her voice trembling as she clutched the sleeping infant. We play along, I whispered. Tell him you'll do it, but demand a down payment to prove his sincerity. We need to use this channel to trace his location and find his domestic mole. An hour later, Chen Mo sent me a report. The account Wang used to offer the down payment belonged to Zhong Lei, our deputy financial director. Take him into custody, I ordered. Quietly, don't alert the others. In the interrogation room, Zhong Lei looked like a ghost of the man I knew. They took my parents, President Sheng, Wang's people. I had no choice. Was Li Mingchen's death your doing? I asked. He nodded slowly. Wang was terrified Li would turn state's witness. The attack on the detention center was a distraction. A professional hitman was embedded in the chaos. He shot Li at point-blank range. Who was the shooter? One of Hu Jiandong's men, but Hu didn't even know. He thought it was just a rescue mission. He had no idea it was an assassination. I closed my eyes. Li Mingchen, you died for a secret you didn't even fully understand. What is Wang's endgame? His coming back, Zhong Lei whispered, his eyes wide with terror. But not to surrender, to get revenge. He blames you for everything. He wants to destroy the Sheng family. He's waiting for the one moment you let your guard down. When, next week, your father's birthday banquet, he knows the whole family will be there. I immediately cancelled the banquet and sent my parents to a safe house. Then, I leaked a story. Sheng Qianxue hospitalized due to nervous breakdown following ex-husband's death. 3 days later, in a private VIP ward, I lay in bed with the curtains drawn. To the world, I was a broken widow. In reality, the room was a kill box filled with cameras and armed guards. In the dead of night, the door creaked open, a shadow slipped in, leveling a suppressed pistol at the bed. Wang sends his regards, the shadow whispered. He pulled the trigger, but there was only a dull click, the firing pin hitting a dummy round I had swapped into his magazine earlier. The lights flared on, a dozen red laser dots appeared on his chest. Drop it. I sat up, holding my own weapon. We wrestled him to the ground and ripped off his mask, a stranger but with the eyes of a killer. Where is Wang? I demanded. The assassin sneered. You'll never find him. He's already at your father's place. You thought cancelling the banquet made them safe? No, he just changed the plan. He went straight to the ancestral estate. My heart stopped. It was a diversion. The car roared through the night toward the Sheng estate. I burst through the front door, gun drawn. In the living room, my father sat on the sofa. Standing before him was a man in a tailored suit, refined, scholarly, and utterly deadly. Vice Governor Wang, Qianxue. He smiled as if we were at a dinner party. You're faster than I expected. Let him go. I leveled my gun at his head. Don't be reckless, he said, holding up a small remote. This house is rigged with enough C4 to level the entire block. If I die, we all go together. My hand shook. How? Zhong Lei, Wang said, reading my mind. He wasn't just my mole in your office. He worked as a part-time gardener here for 3 years. Burying explosives was child's play for him. What do you want? Simple, the evidence from Bai Ruo and a full withdrawal of all charges against me. In exchange, I leave the country and never look back. Your family stays alive. You're dreaming. I spat. You think I'd trust the word of a traitor? You don't believe me. He pressed a button. A muffled explosion rocked the garden. The decorative rockery disintegrated into dust. That was a warning. Next time it's the foundation. My father stood up. his face etched with defiance. Chen don't listen to him, I'm an old man, my life is worth nothing compared to letting this traitor go. Dad, I screamed. Shut up. I took a deep breath and looked straight at Vice Governor Wang. Fine, I accept, I'll give you the evidence and the charges will be dropped, but you have to defuse the explosives first. No, he said, shaking his head. Once the evidence is in my hands and I've safely crossed the border, I'll tell you the disarm code. And how do I know you won't go back on your word? You don't have a choice, he replied with a smirk. Sheng Qianxue, you've been winning for so long, but in the end, you still lose. You have one fatal flaw, you care too much about your family. He was right. That was my weakness and my bottom line. Fine, I said, lowering my gun. I'll have someone bring the evidence, but you let my father leave first. He's old, he can't handle this kind of shock. Vice Governor Wang thought it over for a moment and nodded. Fair enough, but you stay here as my hostage. My father refused to go, so I had to force my bodyguards to practically carry him out. Soon it was just me and Vice Governor Wang in the living room. A smart choice, he noted. Now make the call, I dialed. By Ruer's number. Bring the flash drive over. Yes, now come alone. After hanging up I looked at him. Why did you do all this? You had power, money, everything. Why become a spy? He froze for a second, then gave a bitter laugh. You think I wanted this 20 years ago while I was studying abroad? They targeted me, they took photos, recorded videos. Since then I've been their puppet, wanting out. The only way out is in a body bag. So you dragged everyone else down with you, Li Mingchen, Hu Jiandong and all those innocent people. I had no choice, he snapped, suddenly agitated. If I didn't do it, I'd die. By doing it, at least I got to live. Sheng Qianxue, you haven't experienced that kind of despair. You have no right to judge me. Looking at him, I suddenly felt a wave of pity. A man controlled by fear, no matter how high his office, is nothing more than a marionette. The doorbell rang. Bai Ruer had arrived. She walked in, and her face went pale when she saw him. What are you doing here, Ruer? His voice turned uncharacteristically tender. It's been a long time. Is the child okay? Don't call me Ruer. She took a step back. You monster, you used me, you controlled me, and now you want to kill me to silence me. I don't, he said, reaching out a hand. I'm here to take you away. Come abroad with me. We'll start over. The three of us, a family. Enough. Bai Ruer pulled something from her pocket. It wasn't a flash drive, it was a gun. Wang Zhongwo, go to hell. She pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. Vice Governor Wang's expression turned instantly hideous. He raised the remote. You bitch, then we all die together. No. I lunged toward him, but I was too late. He pressed the button. But there was no explosion. Instead, blinding searchlights flared outside the window and a megaphone blared. Wang Zhongwo, you are surrounded. Surrender immediately. He stood there stunned, looking from the remote to me. It's fake, I said, standing up. The explosives are duds. We flipped Zhonglei a long time ago. He planted fakes just to draw you out. Impossible. Totally possible, Captain Zhu said, storming in with his team. Wang Zhongwo, you're under arrest for espionage, corruption, and first-degree murder. He slumped onto the floor, his face ashen. He looked at me, then at Bai Ruer, and suddenly started laughing. Fine, Sheng Qianxue, you're good. I lost, and I admit it. As they led him away, he passed me and whispered, but don't celebrate too early. My organization overseas won't let this go. You'll never know a moment's peace for the rest of your life. I'll be waiting, I replied. They send one, I'll catch one. They send two, I'll take the pair. He faltered, then burst into a loud, frantic laugh that echoed through the night, mad and desperate. My father rushed in and hugged me. Qianxue, are you okay? You scared me to death. I'm fine, Dad, I said, patting his back. It's over, it's finally all over. Bai Ruer stood to the side, clutching her child and sobbing. I walked over and took her hand. Thank you, you almost threw your life away for me just now. I owed you, she said. Now we're even. No, I shook my head. I owe you. We wouldn't have caught him without you. From now on I'll take care of you and the baby. I keep my word. She looked at me and suddenly smiled. Sheng, you know what? I used to envy you for your wealth and power. Now I envy you even more because you have true courage. I gave a wry smile. Courage? No, I just had nowhere left to run. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The long night was finally over. Vice Governor Wang was behind bars. Hongyuan Group was dismantled, and Li Mingchen's death was finally avenged. But inside I felt hollow. In this war, I had won everything, yet I had lost everything 2-3 months later. At the A-City Intermediate People's Court, the case against Vice Governor Wang was open to the public, and I attended as a witness. Bai Ruo was there too, sitting in a corner of the gallery with her child in court. The prosecutor listed the crimes: 1 by 1, 230 million in bribes, 127 counts of leaking classified intel overseas, 3 orchestrated murders, each one more chilling than the last. Wang Zhongwo sat in his prison uniform, his hair turned white, looking 20 years older. He stopped defending himself, only occasionally glancing toward Bai Ruo and the child with a complex look in his eyes. Defendant Wang Zhongwo, the judge announced, is hereby sentenced to death with permanent deprivation of political rights and confiscation of all personal assets. An uproar went through the gallery. Bai Ruo lowered her head, her shoulders shaking. I couldn't tell if she was crying or laughing. As I walked out of the courtroom, reporters swarmed me. President Sheng, are you satisfied with the verdict? President Sheng, are you worried about the overseas retaliation mentioned by the vice governor? There are rumors you're running for the CPPCC, is that true? I handled them one by one before sliding into my car. To the cemetery, I told the driver, I want to see Li Mingchen. His grave was on the outskirts of the city, nestled between the mountains and the water. I had chosen the spot myself. The feng shui was supposedly excellent. The tombstone bore his name, his dates, and a small line of text, founder of the Li Group. I set down the flowers and sat. Ming Chen, I said softly, Wang Zhongwo got the death penalty. You've been avenged. The wind blew, rustling the leaves like a response. Sometimes I wonder, I continued, what would have happened if you hadn't cheated, hadn't tried to scheme against me? Maybe we would have had children, we would have grown old together, the power couple everyone envied. But I also know, I smiled bitterly, that was never possible. You are who you are, greedy and never satisfied. Even without Bai Ruo, there would have been someone else. Even without Starry Bay, you would have sold me out for some other project. So, I don't hate you anymore. Hating someone is too exhausting. I just feel a sense of regret that we ended up like this. I stood up and brushed the dust off my skirt. I'm going. I might not come by often anymore. Take care of yourself. As I turned to leave, I saw someone standing in the distance. It was Bai Ruo. Sheng. She walked over. I came to see him too. After all, the child is his. I froze. The child is Li Mingchen's. She nodded. The vice governor was sterile. The baby is Li Mingchen's. I lied to him and I lied to you. I'm sorry. I looked at her and suddenly laughed. This plot twist was better than anything on TV. So, I said, Li Mingchen died never knowing he had a son. He didn't know. She looked down at the baby. I hope he never knows. His father was a complicated man, talented, ambitious, but also weak. I don't want the boy carrying that burden. What do you plan to do? Leave a city, go abroad, she said. Start over, you promised. I remember. I said, I'll arrange it, but on one condition. What? Let the child take the surname Sheng, I said, looking at her. He'll be my godson. I'll give him the best education, the best life, and I'll make sure he grows up to be an honorable man, not like his father and certainly not like Wang Zhongwo. She was stunned, her eyes welling up. Sheng, why? Because, I turned back toward the tombstone. I owe this to Li Mingchen and I owe it to myself. She was silent for a long time before finally nodding. Okay, but I want to watch him grow up even if it's from a distance. Deal, I said, reaching out my hand. We shook hands in front of Li Mingchen's grave, sealing our strange agreement. Back in the car, Chen Mo handed me a folder. President Sheng, the CSRC has approved Chenshua Capital's IPO. We ring the bell next month. I took the file, looking at the bold letters Chenshua Capital on the cover, suddenly overcome with emotion. 5 years ago, I started this company to help Li Mingchen. 5 years later, it was going public and he was gone. Chen Mo, I said, on the day we list, I want to do something. What's that? Announce the Li Mingchen Charity Fund. It will focus on helping vulnerable groups who have been victims of commercial fraud. We'll use his name, but we'll do the right thing. Chen Mo paused, then nodded. Great idea, President Sheng. Have you truly let go? I looked out the window at the city skyline, glittering in the sunlight. No, I said. But I'll carry all of this with me as I move forward, not for Li Mingchen but for myself. The car drove toward the offices of Chenshua Capital. A new journey was about to begin. On the day of the IPO, the exchange hall was packed. I wore a white suit and stood at the podium before the bell, with Chen Mo and my core team behind me. My father was in the audience, tears in his eyes. President Sheng, The host said, "Please, the floor is yours." I picked up the microphone and looked at the sea of faces. 5 years ago, I founded Chenshua Capital with one goal: to help someone with a dream achieve his business ideals. At the time, I believed that love and support would be met with loyalty and gratitude. The room went silent. Everyone knew who I was talking about, but I was wrong. I continued, "Business is business and feelings are feelings. Confusing the two only leads to disaster." The collapse of the Lee Group and the tragedy of Lee Ming-chen are lessons written in blood. Today, as Chenshua Capital goes public, it marks a fresh start. We aren't just here to create value for shareholders, we are here to shoulder social responsibility. Therefore, I am announcing the establishment of the Lee Ming-chen Charity Fund with an initial injection of 100 million. It will be dedicated to helping those defrauded in business, especially women entrepreneurs. The hall erupted in applause. Finally, I paused for a moment. To everyone going through their own dark times, do not give up. Even if you are betrayed, schemed against, or knocked down, stand back up. Your value is not defined by others, your future belongs to you alone. Now, I raised the gavel. Let the trading begin. The bell rang and the numbers on the giant screen began to leap. The stock price surged and the cheers in the hall were deafening. I watched the flickering digits, feeling an uncanny sense of calm. This was only the beginning. The real battle starts after going public. That evening, the celebration gala was held at the Imperial Hotel, the exact same place where Lee Ming-chen had once hosted the one-month celebration for Bai Ruer's child. Standing at the door of Suite 888, the memories of that day flooded back. Same location but a completely different life. President Sheng, Chen Mo approached me. "There's news, something happened at the Starry Bay project." "What is it?" "They unearthed an ancient tomb on site. It's been identified as a Grade I national cultural relic. The project has to stop immediately. All the capital already invested might be a total loss." I arched an eyebrow. Starry Bay, Lee Ming-chen's ambitious masterpiece and Vice Governor Wang's money laundering tool, was now a heritage site. How did the state-owned enterprise respond? Emergency shutdown. "They're calling for a re-evaluation. Word is they might change the zoning and turn the land into a museum park." I smiled. "You couldn't write a twist like that if you tried." "Notify Dingsheng Real Estate," I said. "If they're willing, Chenshua Capital can take over the investment for the museum park. After all, that land holds too many of my memories." "But President Sheng, that's a losing venture." "I know," I replied, "but sometimes losing money is more meaningful than making it." I drank heavily at the gala, not to celebrate the IPO but to celebrate liberation. Lee Ming-chen was dead, Vice Governor Wang was sentenced, Starry Bay was halted, and Hongyuan Group was dismantled. All the old scores had been settled, but there was still one knot left in my heart. Bai Ruer and the child had already moved abroad. I'd arranged for them to settle in a quiet town in New Zealand. The child's name had been changed to Sheng'en, signifying peace. She sent me photos regularly. The boy was adorable, with eyes just like Lee Ming-chen's and dimples when he smiled. Every time I saw them, I wondered if Lee Ming-chen were still alive. What would his face look like seeing this child? "President Sheng," Chen Mo interrupted my thoughts. "Someone is here to see you," claims to be Lee Ming-chen's lawyer. "A lawyer?" I frowned. Lee Ming-chen had been dead for 3 months. What could a lawyer possibly want? A middle-aged man in gold-rimmed glasses handed me a document. "Ms. Sheng, I am the executor of Mr. Lee Ming-chen's will. 1 week before his passing, he amended it, naming you as his sole beneficiary." I was stunned. "What? All assets under Mr. Lee's name, including several hidden properties, stocks, and a trust fund totaling roughly 50 million, now belong to you also?" The lawyer paused. "He left a letter for me to deliver to you personally." My hand trembled as I took the envelope. "Chenshua, by the time you read this, I'll likely be dead. I know you don't trust me, but this time there's no scheme. I'm leaving everything to you, not as an act of atonement, but as compensation for what I owe you, for what I destroyed, and for the future we should have had. There is one more thing. I buried an Easter egg beneath the Starry Bay project. If you're willing, go take a look. The password is the date we first met. Lee Ming-chen." I stared at the letter for a long time, speechless. "President Sheng," the lawyer asked, "will you accept these assets?" "I'll accept them," I said. "Inject it all into the Lee Ming-chen charity fund. I'll pay back the debts he owes. I'll fix the damage he caused." "And the letter?" "Burn it," I said. The debt dies with the man. I don't want to owe him anything ever again. After the lawyer left, I sat alone in the suite, looking out at the city lights. What was the Easter egg? I didn't want to guess and I didn't want to dig. Let the past stay in the past. My phone buzzed with a video from Bday. Sheng'an was learning to walk, wobbling around and babbling mama. I smiled and replied, adorable, take good care of him and yourself. She messaged back, Sheng, when will you come see us? I thought for a moment, soon, once things are settled here. I'm going to New Zealand to stay for a while. Really, I'm tired. I want to rest. I turned off my phone and walked to the window. The city skyline was as brilliant as ever, but it didn't matter to me anymore. What I wanted wasn't an empire, it was peace, and peace was waiting for me far away. 3 months later, New Zealand, at the Auckland airport, Bday was waiting for me, holding Sheng'an. The boy had grown so much. He smiled the moment he saw me, reaching out his little arms. Call her godmother. Bday coached him. God ma, Sheng'an babbled. My heart melted instantly. I stayed with them for 2 weeks, playing with the baby, walking on the beach and watching the stars. It was a simple, luxurious life. But the peace didn't last. A call from Chen Mo shattered the silence. President Sheng, something's wrong. Vice Governor Wang has escaped. I bolted upright. What? There was a prison break during his transport. 3 guards were killed. Wang Zhongwo is missing. My blood ran cold. He escaped. That monster was out. What's the situation back home? A nationwide manhunt is underway. But there are no leads. President Sheng, be careful. You're likely his primary target for revenge. I looked out the window. Bday was playing with Sheng'an in the yard, her laughter ringing out clearly. I understand, I said. Beef up the security here. I won't be coming back for a while. When I stepped out, Bday saw my face. What's wrong? Wang Zhongwo escaped. I told her, it's not safe here, we need to move. She went pale. He could find us here. It's possible. Pack your things, we leave tonight. We moved to a small town on the South Island under assumed names, living in seclusion. But the unease never left me. A week later, I received an anonymous letter. Inside was a single photo, the backs of me and Sheng'an playing on the beach. On the back, a sentence was written, the game continues. WW Wang Zhongwo. He knew where I was. He was watching me. President Sheng, my bodyguard old K, said, I suggest going back to China. We have more resources there to protect you. No, I shook my head. Back home, he'll hurt innocent people, my father, my friends, my employees. Here, he only has me. But you, my mind is made up, I said. Also, get me in touch with Captain Zhu. I'm going to set a trap to lure Wang Zhongwo right into our hands. 3 days later, I had a notice published in a local newspaper. Sheng Qianxue suffers mental breakdown, admitted to psychiatric hospital for mandatory treatment. Simultaneously, I leaked a rumor that I possessed a master list of Wang Zhongwo's overseas organization and was preparing to hand it over to Interpol. Once the news was out, I checked into the hospital, actually a secret facility controlled by a security firm rigged with traps. The wait was long and grueling. On the 7th night, the alarm tripped. The monitors showed a shadow scaling the wall, armed with a silenced pistol, heading straight for my room. I hid in the shadows as the figure kicked open the door and fired 3 rounds into the decoy on the bed. Vice Governor Wang, I said, flicking on the lights. Long time no see. He spun around, aiming at me, but a second later, old KS men swarmed in from every corner, pinning him down. Sheng Qianxue, he snarled, struggling. You tricked me again. No, I walked over. You were just too arrogant. You thought I'd break, that I'd show weakness. Wang Zhongwo, you forgot I'm Sheng Qianxue. I never trip in the same place twice. He was pressed against the floor, his eyes full of venom. Kill me, then you wouldn't dare. My organization will. Your organization. I tossed a folder in front of him. Dismantled. Interpol moved in last week and arrested 127 people, including your handlers. You aren't just an outcast now, you're the bottom of the barrel. He stared at the file, his face drained of color. Impossible, impossible. Maybe, I said, crouching down to look him in the eye. Wang Zhongwo. You lost everything. As they were leading him away, he suddenly let out a chilling laugh. Sheng Qianxue, you think you've won? Let me tell you something. I left a gift for you back in City A, a big one. You'll find it as soon as you get back. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my face like stone. Take him away. The moment I returned to the country, I launched a full investigation into this gift. But after scouring every possible channel, I found nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't until a month later that an international courier arrived, The sender was Li Ming-chen. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. "Chenxue, if you're receiving this, it means I'm dead and Wang Zhongwo is behind bars. This drive holds my final gift to you. It is also my very last calculation, Ming-chen." I plugged it in. There was only one video file on the screen. Li Ming-chen sat in his study. He looked gaunt and haggard, yet strangely at peace. "Chenxue, first of all, I'm sorry. I know those words are far too light, but I have to say them. I'm sorry for betraying you, for hurting you, and for using you. This video is my insurance policy. If I die a violent or suspicious death, it means Wang Zhongwo made his move. This drive was programmed to be sent automatically. Inside, you'll find a list of every single one of Wang's domestic moles, including people inside the Sheng family. There's also an audio recording of Vice Governor Wang admitting that 20 years ago he orchestrated your mother's death." My fist clenched so hard my knuckles turned white. "My mother? I thought she died of an illness." "Your mother," Li Ming-chen continued on screen, "stumbled upon evidence of Wang's embezzlement and was preparing to blow the whistle. Wang struck first, staging a medical accident. Your father, he knew, but he chose silence because back then he couldn't afford to cross Wang Zhongwo. I knew all of this because Wang once used it to blackmail me into joining his side. I refused, but I never told you. I was afraid that if you knew the truth you'd collapse, afraid you'd hate your father, afraid you'd leave me. Now I'm giving the choice to you. You can take this to the police and get justice for your mother, but it will destroy your father, or you can wipe it all and let the secret stay buried forever. Whatever you choose, I respect it. This is what I owe you. It's the only thing I have left to give." The video cut to black. I sat there in my chair, chilled to the bone. My mother was murdered. My father knew. Li Ming-chen knew. How many more lies was this world built on? I picked up the phone and called my father. "Dad, come to my office now." Alone. An hour later, my father sat across from me. I played the video for him. His expression shifted from shock to a ghostly pale, ending finally in a look of profound, soul-deep exhaustion. "It's true," he whispered. "Your mother, Wang Zhongwo, killed her. I knew, but I had no evidence and no power to fight back. The Sheng family was just starting out. I couldn't touch him, so you stayed silent." My voice was shaking. "You watched my mother die in vain, watched her killer walk free, and you even collaborated with him. I didn't have a choice." My father cried out, becoming frantic. "Chenxue, you were so young. You don't understand. If I had spoken up, the Sheng family would have been wiped out." "You would have. I'd rather have been wiped out," I screamed. "I'd rather have been the child of a pauper than the daughter of an accomplice to murder." My father froze. Tears began to stream down his face. "Chenxue, I'm so sorry. I failed you. I failed your mother." Looking at his aging, broken face, a sudden wave of lethargy hit me. I was too tired to prosecute, too tired for rage, too tired for anything. "Dad," I said quietly, "go move abroad, find Bai Ruo and Shengen. I'll arrange everything. I'll handle things here." "Chenxue, go," I said, turning my back so I wouldn't have to look at him. "Before I change my mind and hand you over to the police." Trembling, he stood up and walked to the door. He paused, looking back at me. "Chenxue, are you going to go public with the truth?" I stared out the window at the glittering lights of City A. "I don't know," I replied. "Let me think." The door clicked shut. I sat alone in the darkness, a choice. Li Ming-chen had left me a cruel one: justice or family, truth or peace. I grabbed the USB drive and squeezed it so hard the metal edges sliced into my palm. Blood dripped down, looking exactly like tears. 3 months later, at the National Convention Center, I sat on stage, facing hundreds of reporters and guests. Today was the official launch of the Li Ming-chen Charitable Foundation, and the day I had decided to lay it all bare. My father had already left for New Zealand to be with Bai Ruo and Shengen. He had signed over all his shares in the Sheng Group in exchange for my forgiveness. I didn't know if that's what it was. Maybe I just didn't want to see his face anymore. "Everyone," I said, picking up the microphone, "I have several announcements today. First, the Li Ming-chen Charitable Foundation is officially established with an initial fund of 100 million to help victims of corporate fraud. Secondly," I took a deep breath, "I am going to reveal the truth behind a case from 20 years ago, the truth about the death of my mother, Mrs. Sheng." The room erupted into a roar of whispers. One by one, I displayed the evidence from the drive: Vice Governor Wang's confession, the old medical records, and my father's signed testimony. My mother, I stated clearly, did not die from a medical mishap. She was targeted and murdered by the then director of urban construction, Wang Zhongwo, the man who would become Vice Governor Wang. He did it because she found proof of his corruption. My father, Mr. Sheng Zhongwo, knew the truth but chose to remain silent. For that, I express my deepest regrets, but I will not be seeking charges. In that era the weak had no choices. But today, I raised my voice. We have a choice. I choose to make the truth public to get justice for my mother, and I choose to forgive my father, for he has spent the rest of his life trying to atone. The room fell silent, followed by a thunderous standing ovation. I knew that from this day forward, the Sheng family name would be dragged through a storm, but I no longer cared. I didn't want a perfect image. I wanted the truth. After the ceremony, Captain Zhu walked up to me. President Sheng, thank you for the evidence. We've added another murder to Wang Zhongwo's tally. When is the execution? Next month, Zhu said. The Supreme Court has finalized it. He won't be escaping this time. I nodded and looked out the window. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. Captain Zhu, I said, thank you for catching my mother's killer. Just doing my job, he replied. He paused for a moment. President Sheng, do you really not hate your father? I thought about it and shook my head. I used to, but now I just feel sorry for him. He was a victim of his time, just like Wang Zhongwo, just like Li Mingchen. They were all controlled by power, greed, and fear until they lost their basic humanity. I don't want to be like them, I continued, so I choose to be open. I choose to face it. I choose to carry the consequences. Zhu looked at me with a complex expression. President Sheng, you are the bravest person I've ever met. I smiled. No, I just ran out of places to hide. That night I flew to New Zealand. At the house in Auckland, my father, Bai Rua, and little Shungen were all waiting for me. Chenshua, my father stood up, his eyes red. You went public. I did, I said. Dad, you're free now. You don't have to carry the secret anymore. You don't have to pretend. Trembling, he pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I patted his back just like he used to do for me when I was a little girl. It's over now, I whispered. Let's start over. Shungen ran over and hugged my legs. Godmom, Huggy. I picked him up and kissed his cheek. This little life was the legacy Li Mingchen left behind, and the start of my new life. Sister Sheng, Bai Rua said. Are you planning to stay here for good? Yes, I replied. Chenshua Capital is already public and managed by a professional team. I want to rest for a while to spend time with you all, with Shungen and with myself, and the business back home. I'll handle it remotely. I smiled. Technology is amazing. I can work from anywhere. Besides, I paused. I want to write a book about my story, about Li Mingchen and about the women of this era. I want to tell them not to let themselves be defined or controlled, to be the queens of their own worlds. Bai Rua's eyes lit up. Have you thought of a title? I have, I said, looking out at the bright blue sky. It's called The Queen of the New World. A year later, the book was published and became a national bestseller. I became an inspirational icon for women, giving speeches and interviews everywhere. But only in my home in Auckland was I truly myself. Shungen had learned to call me Godmom clearly now. He was walking and getting into all sorts of mischief. My father was older, but he smiled more. Bai Rua opened a little shop selling coffee and bread, and business was booming. Sometimes I go down to the beach, sit on the rocks and watch the sunset. I think of Li Mingchen, of Vice Governor Wang, and of all those who are gone. They were once so full of life, so ambitious, so sure they could control everything. In the end it all turned to dust, but I am still here. I'm moving forward, carrying their stories with me. Godmom, Shungen ran over, holding a bunch of wildflowers. For you. I took the flowers and scooped him up. Thank you, sweetie. What do you want for dinner tonight? Cake. All right, cake it is. Under the setting sun, our shadows stretched long across the sand. The queen of the new world, maybe, but all I really wanted was this quiet, simple happiness, and finally, I had found it. The end.